All right. Good morning. I want to quickly share with us on how to choose a good dissertation topic. Another video from Starlight Data Insights. All right, I'm going to get right into it. First, I want us to see mistakes that lead to problematic topics. And by problematic topics, it doesn't mean that these topics are in themselves bad like that, but it just means that these topics can, pique the curiosity of your supervisors and can, give you problems you have back and forth with your supervisor. All right, so what are those mistakes that lead to problematic topics? Number one, lack of topic specificity, inaccessible or difficult to obtain data, unrealistic aim and objectives, methodological mismatches in your topic, and overly broad topics with voluminous data. All right. So I'm going to start sharing on them one after the other. So first, let's see unrealistic aim and objectives. In setting unrealistic aim and objectives. So, for example, consider this topic a universal strategy for sustainable economic growth in sub Saharan African nations. First of all, I'll tell you, try to avoid topics that talks about, universal, global this, global that, and all. Not that they are bad, but you run the risk of assuming a one size fits all solution for diverse cases or for different use cases. So whenever you talk about something global, something universal, what your lecturer is first going to say is that how do you want to get large amount of data to use to compare? You understand? It's going to go beyond, definitely going to go beyond the scope of your work. And because most times, especially master's dissertation, they have a time frame. That kind of research realistically is not something that you can do in 6 months thereabouts. So if you say yeah, you want to achieve it in 6 months, it's going to pique the curiosity of your supervisor that you are either using false data or you are patching data. You get? So another one is when you say the transformation of global education. You say the word global again. All right. So those are very, very slippery grounds. There's a way to go about it, but of course, you might have much back and forth with your supervisor. So you just want to try and avoid them. So how do you better these topics? I've given some improved alternatives here. You have policy intervention for small business growth in Lagos states. All right, a comparative analysis of three local government initiatives. You see, this is very specific. Business growth in Lagos states. You have restricted it to a particular location. You can even go as far as saying Nigeria, as it were. Uh, if you are going to be using, you can go as far as saying Nigeria if you are going to be using qualitative data though, right? But if you want to use quantitative data for this kind of topics, just restrict, the location, all right, so that it can sound more realistic. Then another one concerning the second one about educational paradigms, you have indigenous learning methodologies in selected Nigerian universities. You already said selected Nigerian universities. All right. So it makes your aim, the aim of your study to be achievable. You understand? To be realistic. The aim and objectives, it makes it to be realistic. All right. Yeah. So you want to avoid unrealistic aim and objectives. And they come from, having spreading the aim of your topic too wide. All right. So another one is when you give topics that tend towards inaccessible or difficult to obtain data. Difficult to obtain data. Number one, you have there's an example here: decision making processes of Nigerian central bank executives during the 2023 currency design. Now, why is this somewhat difficult? It's somewhat difficult because you're talking about decision making process of central bank executives. All right. That is not a kind of information that they really, really want to give you like that, except maybe someone has worked on it and has gotten, verified information from them. Then, yeah, you can still go with this kind of topic by doing a purely secondary qualitative data based on a pre existing work. All right, maybe you do a structured literature review on it. You understand? All right, but if you are doing this, and even that, even the structured literature review, your secondary qualitative data, you have to be careful of how you present the data that you claim that to be working on. All right, another one is a psychological impact of terrorist kidnappings on victims in northern Nigeria. Now, this is not bad, but the reason it seems bad is because you are talking about psychological impacts. Psychological impacts. Psychological impacts, that's, it raises the issue of ethics. All right. You might have ethical issues with topics like this. All right. A way you can better these topics to say media portrayals of kidnapping incidents, or you can say psychological impact based on media, so and so and so and so. Now, again, this topic, it's difficult, but the way you can better is that you can actually still have this kind of topic, but when you are writing your aim and objectives, make it known that you are going to be basing your research on a pre-existing information based on what the media has said. All right, because if you leave it blank like this, you want to do psychological impact and you keep writing and writing and writing without stating that, it will raise the issue of ethics with your supervisor. All right, and even if at the end of the day you've done a pretty good job, all right, your supervisor, because of the ethical issues that it have, it might have an effect on your grade. All right, then another one mistake there is methodological mismatches. If you notice, both the first mistake, the second mistake, we've talked about methodology, talking about qualitative data, quantitative data. All right, so methodological mismatches. You have a topic here: quantitative analysis of grief experiences among widows in Eastern Nigeria. Actually, this kind of topic, the wording of this topic is even wrong. You don't really need to say that when you are writing, when you want to give a topic, you don't need to say quantitative analysis of or qualitative analysis of. That's not necessary actually. It's poor wording. Whether it's quantitative or qualitative, it's going to be revealed in your methodology. All right, in the short intro to your methodology in your chapter one and your full methodology in your chapter three. So now let's come back to this. When you say quantitative analysis of grief experiences among widows, that's dead on arrival. You cannot quantify grief experiences. You cannot quantify grief experiences. Why am I saying that? Am I giving this topic? Because I've seen similar situations like this. Else, this should not even be in the example at all. But I've seen similar cases like this. So you can't quantify grief experiences, all right? And then there are many things that goes into grief experiences. There are cultural factors, there are emotional factors, there are personal factors. So you can't really quantify it. You don't want to use quantitative data for that. All right. Another one is when you say assessment of the correlation between interest rate and small business growth in Nigeria, in Lagos. Now, if you see this topic has actually passed the aim and objective test because it's specific to Lagos. It's very achievable. All right. Very, very good topic. But why is it problematic? It could turn problematic if you say that you want to use qualitative data. By seeing the word correlation there, of course, that should tell you that you can't use qualitative data for this. It has to be quantitative data. So if you're not so good with quantitative analysis and the likes, you want to avoid it. Except you are mandated, really, really, really mandated to do it. If you're not so good with it, you want to avoid it because the thing is, you can't tell the extent of where quantitative data can be pushed or the kind of variables that can be required of you. So if you're not good with that, you want to kind of avoid it or reward those topics you get. Now, all right, so how do you better this topic? Like that quantitative analysis of grief experience, you can say lived experiences of widowed in Eastern Nigeria. So when you say lived experiences, it means that they are telling their experiences in words. That one can be done through maybe interviews and all, or you can even do it on pre-existing data, just purely qualitative. And for this, you can say statistical analysis of interest rate fluctuations and SME performance metrics in Lagos. But it's specific, but now you are already telling us the kind of variables that we should look out for in your topic. So yeah, you solve that like that. Another reason is choosing overly broad topics with voluminous data. I think we've talked about this kind of a bit in number one. All right, when you choose overly broad topics with voluminous data, for example, see this: the impact of social media on Nigerian youth. That's too vague. Too vague. The impact of social media on Nigeria. Number one, which of the social media platforms? Number two, which kind of impact are you looking at? So because those are not specific, when the first thing your lecturer is going to tell you is what I just told you now. That's which of the social media, which impact are you measuring? Because if you leave it blank like this, that means you want to talk about all the active social media in Nigeria, and you want to talk about every possible impact. That is not sustainable within the scope of your it's not going to be sustainable within the scope of your time frame for your research, except you are doing a very, very long term research. Right. But for dissertation that is just, that are going to give maybe 6 months or thereabouts, you really want to be specific and you want to thin out your topic. So instead of saying the impact of social media, you can say that Facebook usage patterns or Instagram usage patterns and self-reported anxiety levels like we have here among undergraduate students at the University of Lagos. That's specific. In fact, you can still go as far as saying Nigerian youths, but just tailor what you are saying, all right, maybe to a specific social media platform or to specific social media platform. It could be maybe Facebook and Instagram. It could be Instagram and Twitter, all right, and likes like that. Another one is when you see analysis of leadership styles in multinational corporations. I think recently, maybe someone told me about this kind of topic, and really, there is really nothing so bad about it. But for some lecturers, like I said, all lecturers are not the same, all supervisors are not the same. I'm just trying to give you ways by which you can avoid, you know, back and forth at all costs. For some supervisors, the first thing they will tell you is that there are different leadership styles. So, which of the leadership styles are you saying? Again, you are talking about multinational corporations. There are different multinational corporations. If you don't state it in your topic that you are dealing with a specific multinational corporation as a case study, you are opening it too wide. So, if you say that in multinational corporations, and then when you are writing, you now thin it out to maybe just one multinational corporation, the comment you are going to receive is that your topic is misleading and it is not in tandem with what you are writing. All right, so yeah, you want to just do a little adjustment. Even if you do not adjust the leadership style, you should at least be specific with the multinational corporations. All right, then again, you have there's a topic here: the relationship between economic development and environmental policy in Africa. Why is it problematic? Too much of data, voluminous data. All right, you are talking about Africa, you're talking about economic development and environmental policy. You can restrict it to an African country or you can restrict it to a zone, maybe in West Africa. All right, you can just say in West Africa or in Southern Africa. All right, because what are you talking about? You're talking about environmental policies and economic development. Those are you are by saying economic development, environmental policy, you're opening up yourself to assessing voluminous data. So if you want to access voluminous data, you should at least restrict it, to a particular zone. All right. So yeah, you want to kind of avoid that. Now let me just move to how to select good topics using the SMART approach. I think we all know the SMART approach, which is to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I have one here. The effect of microfinance loans on female entrepreneur revenue in Lagos marketplaces, a 12-month comparative study. All right. 12-month comparative study is actually large, but you can still do it if it is qualitative study. All right. But if you are doing quantitative study, you don't really even need to put any month comparative study. Just say the effect of microfinance loans on female entrepreneur revenue growth in Lagos marketplaces. If you don't put any specific month study, since it's quantitative data and it is primary data, it is just, it's going to be assumed, and it's a good assumption that the data that you are using are the ones that you collect at that point in time when the dissertation was written. All right. Then you have again supply chain resilience strategies of medium-sized food manufacturers in southwest Nigeria following the COVID-19 pandemic. Very, very specific. In fact, it has a time frame 2020 to 2023. You can do this either quantitative or qualitative. Very perfect. Then effectiveness of community-based water management systems in rural Kaduna, a comparative analysis of governance model and portable water availability. Very specific, time-bound as well. All right. So, yeah. So to just wrap this up, Topics best suited for qualitative methods. We have lived experiences of female technology entrepreneurs in Lagos. We talked about this cultural identity, negotiation of Nigeria, diaspora return. Now, so for qualitative study generally, let me just say this: for qualitative study generally, there are studies that deals with maybe experiences of people, studies that deals with textual data. You understand something that that it could even be decision making processes, but it has to be a sizable case study. Get you get so you can use qualitative methodology for those. But once you are talking about something like maybe the performance of one thing versus the performance of another thing, you open up yourself for quantitative study, because when you talk about performance, you want to talk about maybe increase or decrease. You want to make comparisons, and that's going to have to do with numbers and figures and all that. You want to have graphs to do the comparison and all that. So those will be quantitative. All right. So yeah, comparative effectiveness. I think we have a whole video on when to use quantitative and qualitative data, and you'll see the video uh, on this platform as well. All right, yeah. So that's it. You want to choose a good dissertation topic. That means you're going to be specific. Make sure that it is measurable. And like I said, if you know that you have you have a difficulty navigating quantitative data, you really want to stick with qualitative data. You want to stick with qualitative data, and you want to make sure that you are probably maybe using a specific case study, or you are very specific enough. All right, so yeah, that's it. Thank you very, very much. You're welcome. So bye bye. We'll see you next time.